Hello and welcome to Ecocentric. I'm your host Jake Selesky. We've got a lot of environmental news to cover this week, and if you're watching this video for a specific story, you can check the description for the timestamp. Let's get started. First up, the East Coast is expected to become more vulnerable to hurricanes as climate change occurs. The U.S. Eastern Seaboard is already particularly prone to devastating low-pressure systems, but much of the devastation is usually confined to the southeast. Scientists now fear that climate change is increasing the strength of these weather systems and pushing back the barrier protecting the Northeast. Trends over the past several decades demonstrate a correlation between the size and severity of hurricanes and atmospheric carbon levels. More recent storms have also extended further north than expected, like Harvey, a massive 2017 storm that dealt considerable damage to the eastern seaboard. Next, we have some resistance to a fascist and anti-environmental ruler. Student climate protests are sweeping across Brazil, defying far-right President Jair Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro's conservative policies have spurred many young people to take action since January, but these protests focus on climate change in particular. This current administration is unwilling to meaningfully address Brazil's significant part in carbon emissions and pollution, and Bolsonaro's rhetoric suggests that he does not take this issue seriously. Influenced by Greta Thunberg's school strikes in Europe, Brazilian teens are taking to the streets en masse to make their dissatisfaction known to the government. Brazil's ecosystems are especially susceptible to climate change. Cloud forests may have as little as a decade before they begin to collapse. In addition to the threat of climate change, logging, gold dredging, mining, and monoculture farming have reduced the size of the Amazon by nearly 20%. Conservation and climate action are particularly essential and urgent in Brazil, and protesters are determined to make this known to their government. Now some news about a fossil fuel company. Investors have put forth a landmark climate change resolution for BP, a British fossil fuel giant. BP investors and executives are determined to bring their company's practices to conformity with the provisions of the Paris Agreement. Under attack by the growth of alternative energy and decreasing oil reserves, fossil fuel multinationals are more often turning to gradual reform as a survival strategy. BP, the company responsible for the infamous Deepwater Horizon oil spill in 2010, was a stubborn holdout for outdated policies and practices until 2019. It is now joining the slew of fossil fuel companies that have committed to cutting emissions and other environmental measures, leaving Shell as one of the few Western companies that has not taken action to appease critics and concerned investors. Details of the new resolution will be released after it is formally approved. For years, scientists have been warning people about the dangers of climate change to come. Now, they're starting to appear. Plankton are responding to global warming by moving northwards, potentially spelling disaster for ocean ecosystems. Plankton species that are essential to the health of ocean life are stretching north of their usual ranges in the Pacific and Atlantic, causing dramatic changes in the migration patterns and behavior of other organisms. Scientists have identified a normal baseline for the seasonal movement of plankton throughout history, and it is this consistent pattern of movement that has dictated the evolution of myriad, nobody knows, marine species. But higher global temperatures are changing this pattern, throwing consumer species into disarray. Animals are now forced to either move to an environment ill-suited to their needs in pursuit of their food source, or to change their behavior to take advantage of the resources left behind. Either path inevitably disrupts ecosystems and populations. Additionally, higher concentrations of plankton in one area increase the risk of severe toxic blooms, which can kill secondary and tertiary consumers like toothed whales and pinnipeds via biomagnification. Now for another story about Bolsonaro. Deforestation in the Amazon rainforest has risen by 20%, largely due to rampant destruction being ignored by President Bolsonaro and his government. The Amazon rainforest, often referred to as the lungs of the earth, are in serious danger due to neglect by Bolsonaro, spurred by nationalism and corporate ties, similar to the problems with Trump and the environment in the United States. Indigenous tribes in the Amazon have been fighting back and winning some battles, but it's an uphill battle for them as they lack the support of government. Next up, we have some karma. Malaysia is sending thousands of tons of recyclable plastic back to Western nations. After China stopped accepting foreign recyclables, Malaysia briefly became a hub for plastic waste. But Its recycling system is ill-equipped to deal with the overwhelming influx of refuse coming from the West. Villages near recycling plants are inundated with toxic fumes, and very little plastic actually gets recycled. Malaysia has now joined China in refusing any more plastic from most foreign sources. Western nations are not keen on expanding recycling within their borders, as emissions from the process are incredibly devastating to the surrounding environment. Plastic will likely go into landfills at a greater rate until solutions that do not involve taking advantage of developing countries are adopted on an international scale. Now some great news about renewable energy. A new report by IRENA finds that wind and solar are now the cheapest option for energy without financial assistance in most parts of the world. This new report contrasts with many liberals and conservatives who claim that renewable energy is too expensive and isn't feasible for energy generation, or that fossil fuels are better energy sources for developing nations. Part of the reason for the affordability is the fact that solar power costs dropped an impressive 26% from 2017 to 2018, and onshore wind and hydropower dropped 13% and 12% respectively. The report even goes as far as to say that by 2020, more than 75% of onshore wind power and 80% of solar power should provide lower priced electricity than the cheapest new coal-fired, oil, or natural gas option. What with the drop in battery prices and the advancement of smart grid projects, as Electric points out, the future of renewable energy looks very promising if we don't let fossil fuel interests get in the way. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps us out. You can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter at @WeAreEcocentric, where we post daily about environmental news and education. Well, that's all from me. Now it's your chance to save the world. See you next week. This new report contrasts. Why can't I say the word? Contrasts